Let's have a look at the basics of looping in Python. So there's two ways you can loop. That is, you can write a piece of code that goes around and keeps getting executed, either forever or for a set amount of sort of iterations, a set amount of loops. And there's two ways you can do that in Python. You can use the while loop or the for loop, or said another way, you can use the while statement or the for statement. So we'll have a look at the while statement first, probably the easier of the two. So again, remember what it is we're trying to do. We're just trying to learn a way of executing a piece of code continuously for a set number of loops. So one way is to do a while loop. So you see here I've created a variable x and I put it equal to 10, and I've created another variable called loop count and I put it equal to 1. And you'll see me using these now in a moment. I'm creating a while loop. So I use the keyword while, and I have an expression that must evaluate to either true or false. So I'm saying, while this is true, please do this. So Python will keep executing lines 9, 10, and 11 while this expression is true. So as long as x is less than or equal to 20, we'll get these 3 lines of code being executed by Python. So this here has to be an expression that evaluates to true or false. And then of course we have our colon, and then we have indentation, again, very important here in our while loop. So while x is less than or equal to 10, we're just going to print out this is loop, and we're going to print out loop count, which would be 1, and we're going to print out x. So we're going to print out the loop count and we're going to print out x. Then we're going to change x by 2. So this is a possibly new notation for you. So x plus equals 2 is the same as writing x equals x plus 2. So the shorthand way of writing that is to just go plus equals. So x is equal to itself plus 2. So if x was 10, for example, now x will be 12. And then loop count is plus equals 1. So the loop count is equal to itself plus another 1. So now loop count should be 2. So x was 10, it's now 12, and loop count was 1, and it's now 2. So once the Python gets to the end of this line, it goes back up here and it checks this expression again. So it says, is x still less than or equal to 20? Well, yes, x is 12. Line 10 changed it to 12, and 12 is still less than 20. So in it goes again, and it will print this a second time. And now we'll make x equal to itself plus another 2. So it goes from 12 to 14, and the loop count will go from 2 to 3. So up it goes again, and it says, is x now still less than or equal to 20? And it says, well, yes, it is. 14 is still less than 20. So in it goes again. And I will keep doing this until we get to a point where x is no longer less than or equal to 20. And at that point, Python will stop and continue down here with the lines after the while statement. So let's just run it and see that in action. So here you go. Look, it says this is loop 1. And x was 10. This is loop 2, and x was 12. Then on loop 3, it was 14. Then on loop 4, it was 16. It's going up by 2 every time. And then in loop 5, it was 18. Then it was loop 6, it was 20. And then after that, it stopped, because when it went back up and checked it, once x became 20, and it came back up here to line 8, it says, is x less than or equal to 20? And 20 isn't less than or equal to 20. 20 is equal to 20, so it was no longer true. So that's the while loop. So typically with a while loop, you need some type of counter, some type of condition that you keep going around until something is true. But you need to be careful that you don't go around forever and ever, which can easily happen too. And that's known as an infinite loop. And then what would happen is your program would just get caught here going around forever and ever and ever and ever, and your computer could hang. So that's the while loop. Now we're going to have a look at the for in loop. So I've created a list. Let me just stop this. I've created a list in line 16, and I put it to a list of names: John, Mary, David, Susan, Sarah, Bernie, and Ben. And now I'm going to loop through the list. So I'm going to go looping through the list, and I'm going to print out everything in the list. So I say for, and I declare a variable. So it's strange. I'm actually creating a variable as part of the for statement. So I'm saying for a variable called person name in and that's a keyword. So for and in are keywords, and then this is the name of my list. So this is the variable that contains my list. So this is saying for the person's name in list. So what will actually happen is Python will take out the first element in list, which would be John, and it would put person's name equal to John. And then it would print out person's name. So John should get printed out. And then it'll loop again, and it'll come back up, and it will put person's name equal to Mary. And then it would print out Mary. And then it would loop again and put person's name equal to David, and print out David, and so on and so forth until it gets to the end of the list. And when there's no longer anything in the list, it will stop printing its stuff out. So here we go, look at it. We see, that was my loops, and here you see John, Mary, David, Susan, Sarah, Bernie, and Ben get printed out as a result of that for in statement. So the for in statement works with, you have the keywords for, you have the keywords in, again you have indentation, you have a semicolon, you have a variable that contains a list, and then you create and declare, or you declare another variable or create another variable that can contain each item in the list, and that variable changes every time it loops through the list, as it loops through the list. Here's another one. Here's the for in again, but we're using a very, very popular function in Python called the range function. So range is an inbuilt function in Python, and it gives you back a range of numbers. So for example, this will give you back a range of numbers between 5 and 10. So me calling this function range 5 to 10 would sort of be the same as me creating a new list, let's say, or equal to, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the same thing. I can either create a list and put it equal to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or just go range 5 to 10. And then if I go range 5 to 10, Python will automatically create a list with the elements 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 in them. So what's common enough in Python is to do this type of thing. So for s in the list of numbers returned from the range function between 5 and 10. So when I run this, and I'm sure you're going to guess what's going to happen. You see, so this is the first one. These are all the names getting printed out. You're seeing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There you go. You're getting these numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 getting printed out because it's looping through the list that was generated by the range function. So range can be back a list containing numbers between 5 and 10, and I'm going through each one of them. Just like up here, I went through this list, but I created this list myself. Here, the range function created the list. If I was to do it, here's another way of doing it. I say for x in range 10. So here I don't give a start number. So when I don't give a start number, it assumes you want to start at 0. So essentially this is the same as going for x in range 0, 10. Same thing. So starting at 0, going all the way to 10, but not including 10, print out x. And again, you see it here. Look, I'm getting 0, 1, 2, getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up as far as 9. It doesn't go to 10. Okay, line 31. We're getting even trickier here. So first, I calculate the length of list. So what's the length of list? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items in it. So length of list is 7. And then I use that number and I use that as the input into the range function. So essentially this is the same as going range open bracket 7 close bracket. So I'm saying for I in range len list. So this will give me 0 to 7. And it should print out item at index I in the list is. So I should initially be 0, then it should go to 1, then it should go to 2, then it should go to 3. And I use I to index into the list. So there's a lot going on here in these two lines. So one more time, let's go through it. This here will give me back the length of the list, which in my case is 7. So this here is essentially the same as going for I in range 7. So range 7 will give you all of the numbers between 0 and 7. So range 7 will give you back a list 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to loop through that list, and for every number in the list, we're going to put I equal to 0, then the next time will be 1, then the next time will be 2. And why is I being set to 0 and then 1 and then 2? Because range 7 gives us back a list with 0, 1, 2, 3. So I will be put equal to each item in the list one at a time as we loop through it. So on the very first loop, I should be 0. On the second loop, I would be 1. On the third loop, I would be 2. So on and so forth all the way to 7. So this here will print out item at index I. So I in the first loop would be 0, for example. In list is, and then list I. So in the first iteration of the loop, that would be list 0. So that would be the item at position 0. So what is the item at position 0 in list? John. And then it will loop a second time, and I will become 1. And then this would say item at index 1 in list is list 1. So I will become 1. What's at index 1? Mary. So this should print out all of the names in the list. And indeed, it does. Where is it? There you go. Item at index I is, look, item at index 0 is John. Item at index 1 is Mary. Item at index 2 in list is David, and so on and so forth. And finally, the last one to note is enumerate. And what enumerate does is if you pass in a list, not only does it give you back the index of the list, but it gives you back the item in the list. So this enumerate gives you back two values. It goes through the list and it gives you back the index that it's currently looking at and the value that's currently at it. So as it goes through the list, it'll say, I'm at index 0 and the value is John. I'm at index 1 and the value is Mary. I'm at index 2 and the value is David. So I in the first loop will be 0 and N will be John. I in the second iteration of the loop will be 1 and N will be Mary. I in the third iteration of the loop, I will be 0, 1, 2 and N will be David, and so on and so forth. So again, if you look at it, you can see, look, item 0 is John, item 1 is Mary, item 2 is David, and so on and so forth. So that's a very, very quick recap on lists, another powerful, on looping, which is another really, really powerful feature of all programming languages, not least Python. So it's very, very common to have to be able to loop your code, be able to write your code so that it executes sort of like going around in a circle. It's a common thing you need to be able to do with your code. And again, all comes with lots of practice.